I accept the class of 2020 and pronounce them graduates.
This college student was shot multiple times, all because she went home with the wrong man. 19-year-old Leilani Beauchamp was just trying to enjoy a Halloween weekend party, but that night would later lead her into a deadly love triangle, with an Air Force guy and a jealous girlfriend at the center of it all. By the time her family realized something was wrong, Leilani was already gone, and when her body was found, wrapped in a blanket and dumped miles away in Salinas, the brutal truth began to unravel. Secrets, manipulation, and a calculated cover-up involving not just one person, but multiple players. Who really pulled the trigger? And how did some of those involved walk away without doing serious time? Buckle up, because this is the shocking, heartbreaking story of Leilani Beauchamp and the twisted betrayal that led to her death. Leilani Beauchamp was just 19 years old when she went missing on the evening of October 30th, 2021. Her family immediately knew something wasn't right. Leilani always kept in touch, especially with her siblings, but that day, total silence. The night before, she'd gone out to a Halloween weekend party in Sacramento. It was a big event, roughly 45 minutes from her hometown of Fairfield, California. She was seen leaving the party early that morning with two men. Both were active duty Air Force airmen stationed at Travis Air Force Base. One of them, Juan Peralta, lived in Fairfield. The other, his friend and fellow airman, Damian Ponders. Here's something important to note. Juan wasn't a stranger. Leilani knew him. In fact, the two had gone out a few times. But Juan had a girlfriend, Jessica Quintanilla, 21 years old, from Pittsburgh. When Leilani didn't return home and couldn't be reached, her loved ones reported her missing that same Saturday evening. That led authorities to Juan's home on Cascade Lane. He told them he didn't know where Leilani went and claimed she had left his house that morning. But investigators felt something was off. His story didn't sit right. So they came back with a search warrant, and what they discovered inside that house was disturbing. One of the upstairs bedrooms had clearly been cleaned, but not well enough. The mattress and the bedding were missing, and there were traces of blood. Investigators determined that a homicide had occurred. Faced with the evidence, Juan eventually confessed. Leilani was dead. She had been killed inside the home, and then her body had been transported over 130 miles away to Salinas. The very next day, October 31st, around 5:30 p.m., Leilani's body was found. She was wrapped in a blanket, left at the bottom of a hill in Salinas. A single gunshot wound to the head. That was it. That was how her story ended. And just like that, what started as a missing persons case quickly expanded into something much bigger. Fairfield police were already on high alert, but now they were teaming up with Monterey County investigators and military personnel from Travis Air Force Base. It wasn't just a local tragedy anymore. It was becoming a multi-agency investigation. In Salinas, the discovery of Leilani's body sent shockwaves through the community. Locals couldn't believe it. This was not something that happened here. People were shaken. They wanted answers. How does a young woman who wasn't even from their area end up dumped like garbage in their backyard? And while the public was still trying to process it all, Leilani's family was living a nightmare. Her mother, Violet, and her grandmother, Monica, received the worst news imaginable. And it came on Halloween. A night meant for fun and candy became the day their world completely shattered.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. This is a senseless tragedy, and it's just been utterly heartbreaking for everyone involved. Wonderful young woman caught in a horrible situation.
Then, just 2 days later, on November 2nd, police made a public announcement.
Fairfield police say 3 people have been arrested. One of them, 20-year-old Juan Peralta, is an airman first class at Travis Air Force Base, according to a spokesperson with the base. He was arrested for accessory to murder.
Juan's arrest sent shockwaves through those who knew him, including his roommates. Some were in disbelief. One of them spoke to reporters.
He was a great runner. All I have is good things to say about him. I did not see this at all. Unfortunately, it happened. I'm so sorry.
He also mentioned that he didn't interact with his roommates much, but he did remember seeing Leilani before.
My condolences to the family. I give them my prayers. Currently, the landlord here I work every day, work nights. I barely even see the roommate.
Another roommate described the entire ordeal as unsettling.
It feels very eerie because we came in here to get ready that evening, and we had no idea something had happened. And then to watch the police search your house on the cameras, like we have cameras all over the house, it was eerie.
So what exactly happened? Who was involved? To understand this, let's break down the people at the center of this case. Leilani Marie Beauchamp, Lainey, as she was lovingly called by her family and friends, was born on June 12, 2002 in Long Beach, California. She grew up in El Dorado Hills before graduating from Carmel Valley High School in Carmel. Lainey was the oldest of three, a big sister to a younger brother and sister who looked up to her in every way. Her family often described her as a true blessing. Her loved ones remembered her as warm, vibrant, and deeply caring. She had a passion for makeup and she loved cooking, especially for her family.
She's like the most adorable woman on the planet.
At just 19, Leilani had already started pursuing her degree in the arts in San Jose. She had dreams of a career in cosmetology, a field where she could combine her love for beauty, art, and creativity. She loved music, design, and everything expressive. She was fearless, determined, and devoted to her family, especially her younger siblings. She checked in with them every single day. Whether it was a quick text, a funny meme, or just a call to say hi, she never missed a day. So when Saturday came and went, October 30th, and no one had heard from her, her family knew something was wrong. It wasn't like her, and that silence, it was deafening. Juan Para Peralta was by most accounts a quiet guy. He mostly kept to himself. Born in Mexico and raised in California, he joined the Air Force at 19. He said he first met Leilani online through Instagram. Their connection moved from screen to real life when they saw each other at a party. The relationship started there, but it didn't last long, and they drifted apart. Juan eventually moved on and started seeing someone else, Jessica Quintanilla. Jessica was a young mom living in Pittsburgh, California, raising a toddler. The two had been dating on and off. It was complicated. Friends said Jessica was fiery, protective. Some may say possessive. She had a reputation for being intense, especially when it came to Juan. Then, in September of 2021, things shifted again. Juan and Leilani reconnected. It started up casually, DMs, likes, messages. Before long, they were back in each other's orbit. They were even spotted together at a sideshow, those illegal streetcar stunt gatherings that happen across the Bay Area. And when Jessica found out, she wasn't having it. According to Juan, their relationship was never officially defined, but that didn't stop Jessica from getting jealous. She broke up with him repeatedly, but every time she came back, the demands got louder. Stop seeing Leilani, cut her off. But instead of blaming Juan, the man she was dating, Jessica directed her rage at Leilani. She didn't just dislike her, she hated her. She saw her as a threat, and that hatred would soon spiral into something far more dangerous. Then there was Marco, Jessica's older brother, a man with criminal history that was anything but minor. He'd been tried and convicted of attempted murder, a violent felony under California law. At the time of Leilani's death, Marco was out on parole, wearing an ankle monitor, still living under the state's watch. Now, these three, Juan, Jessica, and Marco, were at the heart of a case that would tear apart a family and send shockwaves through 3 California counties.
They want their daughter's death brought to justice.
But the question was still haunting. How did it come to this? How did 3 lives become so dangerously entangled? And how did Leilani, a bright 19-year-old with her whole future ahead of her, end up the victim of such a brutal and calculated crime?
There is some indication it might have been a love triangle.
Jessica Quintanilla was hit with the most serious charge, murder. Prosecutors say she was the one who pulled the trigger that morning inside of the house on Cascade Lane.
The only thing that might be unusual about this case that you don't normally see is we have a woman that's a shooter.
Her brother Marco faced charges too: accessory after the fact and illegal possession of a firearm. He was a convicted felon and he wasn't supposed to have a weapon at all. As for Juan Para Peralta, he was charged as an accessory after the fact. His role, according to prosecutors, was in what came after what he knew, what he didn't report. On November 2nd, Juan was released on a $25,000 bail and returned to Travis Air Force Base, where he stayed under close supervision. The base released a statement offering condolences to Leilani's family. Our thoughts and deepest condolences are with the family and friends of the victim. At this time, Travis Air Force Base is engaging with and fully cooperating with civil authorities. They also clarified what happens when an airman is released on bail. Per protocol, they're expected to report back to their assigned duty station and are responsible for complying with any and all ongoing legal proceedings. While Jessica and Marco were being held without bail at the Solano County Jail, their roles in the crime were being scrutinized more closely, and investigators were building a case that would expose the depth of what really happened inside that home. The trial for Jessica and Marco Quintilia finally began in Solano County Superior Court, with a jury seated in late 2024 after months of delays. It was a case steeped in tension, betrayal, and heartbreak. What prosecutors framed as a deadly love triangle gone horribly wrong. The theory? Jealousy. Prosecutors argued that Jessica could not handle Juan's continued connection to Leilani. They pointed to text messages and social media DMs where Jessica explicitly told Juan not to be around Leilani, messages that hinted at a personal vendetta. The case rested on Juan's testimony, his version of what happened that morning, and it was backed by physical evidence, including the autopsy report and the discovery of Leilani's body. On the stand, Juan admitted that he and Jessica had been involved, but things were rocky. They'd argued the night before the murder, and according to him, that fight ended their relationship, and he told her she needed to pick up her stuff and leave his house on Cascade Lane. Then, in the early hours of the morning, Jessica showed up. No warning. Juan said she was agitated looking for her things, digging through drawers and personal belongings. He told her to leave. She said she would, but not before grabbing her stuff. And that's when things escalated. Jessica allegedly pulled back the bed covers and saw Leilani lying there. And Juan said she looked at her and said one word. That woke Leilani, who asked, "What's up?" confused but calm. According to Juan, Jessica then left the room for about 30 seconds. When she returned, she had a semi-automatic handgun in her hand. He said he just saw it and then heard a loud noise and a single gunshot. The medical examiner, with years of courtroom testimony under his belt, later confirmed the shot was fatal. The bullet had passed through Leilani's brain, fracturing her skull. It was fired from close range, about a foot away. The angle, downward and front to back. Cold, calculated, and close. From there, things only got more chilling. Juan testified that Jessica kept the gun on him the entire time, forcing him to help cover up the murder. He said she threatened not just him, but also his family if he didn't do what she said. First, they wrapped Leilani's body in a blanket, then they drove to a Home Depot. Jessica wanted a tarp, though it's unclear if it was ever actually used. After that, they hit the road. Juan said she kept the gun on him the whole way down to Monterey County. They pulled off near Corral de Tierra Road in the rural outskirts of Salinas. As they started unloading the body, Jessica made a horrifying suggestion. We should burn the body. But Juan said no, it was too light outside, too risky. So instead, they dumped Leilani's body about 10 yards off the road, tucked into the brush. What happened next only deepened the twist. They went to Jessica's grandmother's house, where Juan spoke with Marco, Jessica's brother. According to Juan, they sat in his Cadillac and had a tense conversation. Marco allegedly told him flat out that he, Juan, would be the one charged with the murder. Juan said he realized in that moment Jessica was going to try to pin everything on him, and he was terrified. The next day, the two of them returned to Travis Air Force Base. That's where they linked up with Juan's friend and fellow airman, Damian Ponders. From there, the trio made their way back to the Cascade Lane house. Inside that second-floor bedroom, Juan and Damian helped clean up the scene. Then, the two men drove out to Viejo to dump the blood-stained mattress, tossing it in a dumpster like it was trash. During the cross-examination, the defense tried poking holes in Juan's version of events. Specifically, they questioned whether Jessica still had the gun when they returned to Travis Air Force Base in the early hours of October 31st. How do you know she had a gun? The defense asked. Juan said he had seen it, said he remembered her slipping the Glock into the pocket of of her hoodie. He drove her onto the base with her sitting right next to him in the passenger seat. But she wasn't searched for weapons, he claimed. No one checked. But the defense pushed further. If you were so scared, why didn't you say anything once you got inside the dorm? You were with Damien, safe inside the base. Juan's answer, he was scared. Jessica was still outside, armed and dangerous. And he claimed he even told Damien that she was going to blame the entire thing on him. But Jessica had her own story, and in her version, Juan was the mastermind. She admitted they both had firearms at the time, but according to Jessica, the guns were kept by Juan. She called them ghost guns, the kind you build from parts bought online, totally untraceable. Jessica also painted their relationship as toxic and unstable. She said Juan would block her on social media and then come back around. Prosecutors meanwhile pulled receipts, texts, and DMs where Jessica warned Juan to stay away from Leilani. In one message, she straight up admitted she had a vendetta against her. Jessica accused Juan of being controlling and erratic. She claimed he had broken into her apartment, stalked her, and even actually at her. Then came her version of what happened that morning. Jessica testified that she was hungover, upset, and just came by the house around 8:30 a.m. to grab some of her things. She claimed Juan started yelling at her the minute she walked in. She said she was looking for her jade bracelet, and at some point the bed covers were pulled back to reveal Leilani lying there. She told the court she simply said to Leilani, "I'm just here to pick up my things." But what happened next? Well, that's where her version of events start to clash hard with Juan's. Jessica said Juan was standing at the door with a gun in his right hand. She claimed he pressed it into her left shoulder. According to her, she grabbed his wrist with her left hand, pushed it back toward the bed, and that's when the gun went off. She said, "I just ran out, sat in the car outside, shaken, with no clue what had just happened to Leilani." Jessica said after that, she and Juan hit the road. They went from San Leandro to San Jose, stopping at Home Depot along the way to buy a shovel, and then made their way down to Salinas. That lines up with Juan's earlier testimony where he claimed they dumped Leilani's body off Coral de Tierra Road. But here's where it gets wild. Jessica insisted Juan had control of the guns the entire day. Later, they went back to her place in Pittsburgh. Jessica claimed she didn't even know Leilani's body was in the trunk of the Cadillac. She said when it was finally opened, she saw a blanket and a white plastic bag, but hadn't realized what was inside until that moment. She told the court that while they were at the apartment, she took a shower, and when she came out, Juan was standing by the washing machine like he was blocking her way, trapping her there. They eventually went back to the Cascade Lane house, and early the next morning, they linked up with Juan's friend, airman Damien Ponders. That's when the cleanup began. Damien and Juan helped clean the bedroom, and then Juan and Damien drove the blood-soaked mattress out to a dumpster in Viejo and got rid of it. Later, back in Pittsburgh, Jessica said she finally told her brother Marco that Juan had killed someone. But prosecutors weren't buying the whole "I was just venting to my brother" act. They alleged Marco didn't just listen, he helped cover it up. We're talking about deleted texts, sketchy conversations, and movement tracked through his own ankle monitor, which put him right in the mix. Throw in some DNA, fingerprints, and gun talk between the siblings, and it wasn't looking good. Now, the prosecution, they went in on Jessica. One of their key points, she showed zero remorse. According to them, not a single tear for Leilani during the entire 5-week trial. Instead, they claimed Jessica's actions screamed premeditation. They pointed to that moment when she allegedly walked out of the bedroom, only to come back holding the gun that they said wasn't panic. That was a choice. Then came Detective Brian Hoskins, the one who kicked off the investigation after Fairfield police flagged him on November 1st. He testified that Juan led them to the body 25 feet down a hillside in Salinas. Leilani's body face down, wearing only underwear and socks. He said there was visible brain matter and bone fragments tangled in her hair. It was graphic, heartbreaking. By November 13th, the jury had made up their minds. Guilty, felony, murder. And just 2 days later, on November 15th, Jessica Quintanilla was officially sentenced to 25 years to life in state prison. That whole heat of passion defense, the jury wasn't buying it. They sided with the prosecution, calling it what it was, a deliberate, calculated act. And just like that, Jessica's fate was sealed. As for her brother, Marco, he didn't get through a fire of a full-blown jury trial. Instead, he took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact. On January 17th, 2025, the judge sentenced him to 4 years in state prison. But here's the thing, most of that time had already been served. He'd been sitting in custody for over 3 years, so the plea deal spared him from a much harsher sentence he likely would have faced if convicted at trial. Now let's talk about Juan and Damien. Juan, the key witness, got immunity from prosecution because of his testimony, and Damien, he was never charged criminally. But that doesn't mean they walked away untouched. Both were kicked out of the military under less than honorable conditions. The Air Force made it clear, just being tangled up in this case was enough to cost them their careers. In the end, while only Jessica and Marco faced prison time, the ripple effect touched everybody involved. Leilani Beauchamp's murder became more than just a tragic headline. It was a chilling example of how obsession, jealousy, and poor decisions can spiral into something irreversible. Do you think Juan and Damien got off way too easy after everything they were involved in? Meanwhile, Leilani lost her life and her family's living with that pain forever, so let's talk about it. Drop your thoughts in the comments because this case, it raises a lot of questions. And if you thought this story was wild, there is more where that came from. Check out our other videos and hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss the next twist, the next turn, or the next case that'll leave your jaw on the floor.